Introducing Tools for Living Your Fullest Life. This is Life's Toolbox with Kenny Brixey on Empower Radio. Now, here's your host, Kenny Brixey.
Welcome to Life's Toolbox, where each week we introduce tools that will assist you in discovering and embracing your own incredible truth, value, and worth. These tools are designed to empower your journey to living a more mindful and purposeful life, and they will guide you to live as the beautiful, perfect, authentic essence that is you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. What is more important to you? To be happy or to be right? This past week on many occasions, this tool that we're going to talk about today, choose to be happy rather than right, has shown up for me. You know, I found opportunities to use this when I'm working with some of my clients in coaching scenarios. I had it show up big time in a corporate event that I was facilitating. A couple of friends kind of needed to hear it, and I needed to hear it for myself. It has been so powerful that I thought I would use it here on the show as the tool for this week. And I knew that we had used it a few other times, so I went back and looked over all of the show notes because I didn't want to keep repeating myself. And I realized that every other time I've used this tool on the show as a tool to present, if you will, I've been using it as a tool for relationships. It's more than that. You know, primarily what we've talked about before have been using this tool in your intimate relationships. I've used my marriage as an example on many occasions. But today we're going to be expanding the tool. For the remainder of the show, think of this tool as one to use in every aspect of your life. With other people, so of course that would be a relationship scenario, but not necessarily the intimate ones. Use it, think about using it in different situations and in your own thinking. When you are mindful of your thinking and feeling, you can use this tool anywhere you choose. So back to the question, what is more important to you? To be happy or to be right? If you answered both, well, that just doesn't always happen. And when we break this all down, you will see that it's not even necessary. And some people kind of go, what do you mean? I'm not going to be happy unless I'm right, and vice versa. Contrary to popular belief, right and happy do not rely on each other. You do not have to be right in order to be happy. On the other hand, if you choose to be happy first, you will find that you feel right in the largest majority of the cases. You know, if you choose to be happy and you really take that feeling on, you really embrace that feeling, then you are going to feel right. Things are going to feel like they're where they need to be, like they're in place. You're going to feel as if you have taken all the right steps to get to where you currently are. You're going to feel that all is well. Now, we do not have to be right first. That's going to be the key to today's show. You do not have to be right first. In fact, if we choose to pursue being right first, happiness can be quite elusive, and it can even seem to move further and further and further from our reach. The universe does not have to align in absolute perfect order before we feel right enough to be okay with being happy. We do not have to have everything go our way before we can be happy. You know, I once worked with a group who totally agreed with me. They said, yeah, we buy that. We know that. We agree with you. And then they turned around and they started telling me all the things that they needed to have in order so that they could be right. We had to work quite a bit to undo that thinking, and we had to really move very, very far to show them how they needed to be happy first and how they could be happy first. That was the big thing, was just getting them to see the possibility of being happy first. Once you embrace happiness, you realize that happiness is your top priority. As I said before, we have touched on this topic a couple of times here on Life's Toolbox before, and it is usually revolving around the relationship thing. I truly believe, I'm not discounting that teaching. I truly believe that being happy rather than right is the number one most important tool in strengthening and maintaining relationships. If you have not heard those shows before, go back to the Life's Toolbox page on the empowerradio.com website. Look through the archives. You'll find several shows about being happy. Go listen to them. I think they're pretty good things, pretty good shows. But anyway, to move forward on this show, to illustrate the importance of this tool outside of relationships, let me give you this to consider for a moment. In order to be right, someone or something has to be wrong. While that may not seem like too big of a concern, especially when we're really focused on being right, it's okay to make other people wrong. That's kind of our thinking. Think for a moment about how it feels to be made wrong. Even in the minor things, when you are made wrong, how does that feel? So in order to be right, someone has to be made wrong, or something has to be made wrong. Think about all the times you consider yourself wrong about a decision you made, a step you took, a project you joined, and so on. Think about how often you blamed something or someone else or yourself. Have you ever beat yourself up over something? This is all right, wrong thinking. We do this to ourselves as often and even more so in some cases than we do to other people. When we flip this to the happy side of our tool, in order to be happy, all we do, all that we have to do is choose it. And most of the time when we choose it, our attitude and our outlook benefit other people. And they sometimes can become happier too, because we share a little positive energy. They pick up on it and it lifts them. And if they're not happy, at least they're a little bit less angry, a little bit less sad, less stressed, etc. When we choose happy, our surroundings seem to get a little, sometimes a lot lighter, more peaceful, more comfortable. When we choose happy, our attitude about things lifts to a more positive place. When we choose happy, wrong seems further away, and right is just not that important. Now, this is not to say to abandon your morals or your ethics. It is not saying to toss your values out the window. What I am saying is that you can walk your enlightened path more easily and effortlessly when you choose happy over right. The cool thing here, folks, is that in choosing happy, nothing is required from anyone else. You do not have to rely on your significant other to do anything different. Your happiness is your choice. The tool for today could easily have been happiness as a choice, and we could have had the same discussion. And we could have left being right out of it. Choosing happy is the important thing here. Just choose happy. Happy does not occur because of something else. It does not matter if someone agrees with me or not, I can still be happy. Now, sure, if someone gives me a new car, or if there's an action taken outside of me, somebody else facilitates an action, in many cases, I will be happy for a while. But happiness there, happiness that is reliant on or caused by something outside of me, and the same as anything outside of you, that is fleeting at best. Why is it that even though we know how good it feels to be happy, we still seem to shift back to our need to be right? Even though we feel the benefits of being happy, and even though we understand that happiness can shift our experience of anything to one that is enjoyable and pleasant and empowering and all kinds of other positive things, we still, even knowing that, we still go back and fall back, if you will, into this need to be right. I'm sure you have your own thoughts about that. I have a couple of my own. And here's one of them. One of them is that we attach our happiness to things outside of us, material things, people, experiences. When we do that, we get that brief spark of happiness, but those things that we have attached happiness to, many things can happen. The new can wear off of them and we get bored. They get old. They don't work like they used to. They become damaged for some reason, or they simply go away. And when that happens, we tend to lose our happiness. When we attach our happiness to things outside of us, we cannot be happy until we get those things back, or until we get those things for the first time. We are dependent on things outside of us for our happiness. When we lose happiness or it does not come to us as we hoped, we try to make sense out of life by justifying. And when we start justifying, how many times have you decided that you didn't get something, or let me rephrase this. How many times have you decided that you wanted to have a new car and it didn't come to you, then all of a sudden you started justifying the reasons that you didn't get it. You started justifying the things that might be wrong with that car. It turns into a situation where you're judging, and when you do that, you open yourself to seeing things as right or wrong. You fall into that right-wrong thinking. Another reason we turn back to being right is our ego. Yep, that lovely little nuisance that resides within, that part of us that takes fear and elevates it. Ego tells us that we have got to prove we are right, and if we don't do that, we're wrong. Ego is what tells us, and quite convincingly, I might add, that there is only one right. As a society, we have forgotten that there can be many so-called right ways to perceive or experience any situation. We even fall into the belief system that everything about something has to be right or wrong. And, look at the political climate these days. Whether you're a Trump fan or an Obama fan or a Clinton fan or a Bush fan, it really doesn't matter. We have fallen into this current climate, if you will, that leans towards everything that our fan does is right and everything our opponent does is wrong. There is very little attention given to the individual things that each of these politicians, are doing or have done. The trend is to lump it all together and claim it right or wrong. Of course, to call something right or wrong requires us to fall back into judgment mode, and we've talked about that many times here on the show. We just don't want to go there. When we lump everything together, we limit ourselves as well. We have proven that we can move beyond right and wrong thinking in so many ways. I bring this up because I want to remind you that we can start looking at things differently now by choosing happiness. For most of us in the modern world, we have moved far beyond the old belief that the only right colors of clothing were black, gray, or brown. Those neutral colors that were so boring. And here I sound like I'm calling those wrong. I have many shirts and pants in those colors, still to this day. But today, any color is acceptable to wear. Any. We may not like the color, and we may not even wear some, certain colors, but the fact that they're in the fashion world, and we're not calling them wrong, is proof that we've progressed. It's proof that we've moved beyond this right-wrong thinking in a lot of places. Another example of that is look at all the cars that you pass each day as you drive around doing whatever it is you need to do. There are hundreds of styles, makes and models that are different from the car that you're driving or the car that you dream of. Does that make the other cars wrong? Probably not. Does that make the drivers of the other cars wrong? Definitely not. And there's not too many people who would picture that as wrong either. Most of us don't even picture it as right. It's just something that is. And what a beautiful place that could be if we could drop all right-wrong thinking and just go to where it just is. That's where we can find happiness. I'm aware that there are a lot of folks out there who believe Ford is the only proper vehicle to drive, while others vote for Chevy or Dodge. And of course, then we have the fans of the BMW and the Mercedes or any other hundreds of makes of cars. For most of us, though, we have found a way to respect the other's decisions and not judge their car choices as right or wrong. So in those two examples, we have proven that we can break free of the right-wrong thinking. So when you find yourself there, just stop, call a timeout. How do you see beyond that? We still have many influences attempting to drag us back into that thinking. So this is why, even though we've moved forward in those two examples, we still get drug into right-wrong thinking. And part of that is the marketplace. It's not totally free of right-wrong thinking. In fact, there are ads for many products that tell us that the only right choice is their product. And then there's some ads that go so far as to say that their competitors is the wrong choice. We are assaulted with right and wrong thinking everywhere we look, so it is not so surprising that we fall back into the mindset that we do as often as we do. So I tell you that because I want you to go easy on yourself when you find yourself thinking something is wrong or feeling the need to be right. Don't view yourself as messing up if you fall into that thinking. Just remind yourself that there's other ways. Well, it's a bit easier to steer clear of right-wrong thinking when considering a car or clothes or, some other products. It is a bit more difficult when that situation does take on personal experience. When it takes a personal turn and affects us on that personal level, it's a little more difficult to not go into right-wrong thinking. Right and wrong thinking rise up when it does get personal, and we even justify needing it. I can't tell you how many times I was told I was wrong in my previous marriage. And I honestly have to admit that there were many times that I was thinking I was right. And it just turned into a battle. Being right becomes quite a bit more important on that personal level. Anytime an opposing opinion appears to contradict our opinion, our ego stands up and says, whoa, wait a minute. Ego interprets the differing opinion as a claim to rightness of their opinion and the wrongness of ours. Rightness? Is that even a word? Anyway, you get the idea here. Hopefully you get the idea. Anyway, I should say, ego tells us that that they are claiming to be right. So they have to be saying when that other person claims to be right, our ego tells us that they must be saying that we're wrong. And the ego says, okay, so now we got to stand up. We got to fight. We got to really make a point here and win this battle. And then the battle does begin. Sometimes it gets really loud, really crazy, really mean. Ego does not look for a place where both people can be right. Ego drives you to forget the possibility of compromise. Ego wants to prove that you are right and the other person is wrong, and it does not stop there. Ego demands that you force that other person to not only admit they're wrong, but to change positions. They want you to convert the others, or ego wants you to convert the others. In the process of doing this, in the process of fighting the battle, we are saying, you are wrong, I am right, come to my side. This reminds me of the battle that we saw in Star Wars or whatever it was, where they're always trying to get people to change sides. Join me. Some of these interactions can become heated and even frightening. Many marriages have ended because of right-wrong thinking. In fact, most marriages that have ended because of right-wrong thinking. I used to work with a guy who got a divorce because his wife would not put her empty clothes hangers in a specific place in the closet. He had this habit of when he would take a shirt off a hanger, he'd put that empty coat hanger, in a particular place. And he just demanded that she do the same thing. Instead of seeing her way as being her way and letting her do what she wanted to do, he had this drive to convince her that her way was wrong and his way was right, and she had to convert. Their marriage ended. It lasted less than a year because he could not get over being right and making her wrong. I had another friend, he had a dog who went everywhere with him. I mean, this dog even went on dates with his girl, with he and his girlfriend. And they would go to very nice places. I'm talking about, 4 and 5-star restaurants occasionally. This dog rode in the truck with them, or the car, whichever one they took. And that dog had to sit right between the two of them. The dog did not go in the restaurants, and that's probably only because of the laws. I'm sure of that. But the dog still went everywhere that they went. Now, this dog was very, very cool. I loved him. And I can understand why this companionship was so strong. But anyway, the dog sat between this friend of mine and his date in the car. He sat between them on the sofa at home when they were watching TV. He even slept between them. Now, instead of seeking understanding of his girlfriend's objection to the issue, he saw her as wrong when she complained about it. They ended up breaking up because he was going to prove himself right, prove his desires right and hers wrong. In both of these scenarios, there were so many ways to find common ground. There were so many ways to communicate and come to solution. I hated to see those things break up, but they did. there was space to compromise and some give and take, and there was ways for both parties to feel happy. But their need to be right prevented that from happening. Ego combined with pride and prevented both of these guys from seeing anything but their so-called right way. Now, girls, just because I've used two guys in these examples, do not for 1 minute think that women do not do this as well. We all do it, and unfortunately, we do it often. Sometimes when we do it, it's more extreme and noticeable than others, but we do it often. You know, when I mention that we sometimes do this in ways that are not as noticeable, I mean that sometimes our need to be right does not show up in a loud, argumentative way. Sometimes it's silent and passive-aggressive, if you will. Sometimes it's like when we don't state our opinion that we feel very strongly about it, but we kind of keep it to ourselves in order to avoid an argument, and then the other person goes on about their own way of thinking, which is different than ours, and then we get mad at them because they're not agreeing with us. Well, even though we don't say anything, we become prudish, if you will. We become angry. We become passive aggressive, and it turns into something way more than it has to be. We do this all the time, and it's a feeling. The feeling is anger. The feeling is a lot of times it's kind of a pressure building up. It's a drive to prove a point. When you feel that, tune in. No matter how we handle the situation when it arises, when we feel the need to be right and allow it to play out, we are in a place of proving the other person wrong. It just doesn't work. So tune in to when you do it. You know, earlier I mentioned that we do not have to have everything going our way to be happy. Happiness really is a choice. So how do you make that choice in times where you feel strongly about something? Choosing to be happy always falls into the self-awareness category. To choose happiness, we must open our awareness to our feelings in that moment. We must be aware that the need to be right has surfaced again. We must be aware of the situation, and we must be fully aware that we do have choices. And the choice we make can be true and authentic and offer peace in that situation, even if it's not what we originally thought was right. There are some situations that I really feel important enough and that I feel deserves for me to make a stand. So, you know, when you hear me say make compromises, when you hear me say look for alternatives, it doesn't mean, like I said earlier, don't give up on your values and your ethics and your morals. For me, some of the things I feel very important, very important about, or very strongly about, I should say, that I think are important enough to take a stand on are situations that are in support of the rights of people. Women's rights, civil rights, children's rights are examples of some of these things. Anything that threatens those rights, I feel I need to stand against. I still do it in a way that I can be happy. I don't let that take me to an angry place, and you don't either. You must decide for yourself what is non-negotiable, though. To do that requires checking in and becoming aware of why something is important and just how important it is. When we determine the true importance of something, we can then determine if there are options available. So just like these people's rights that I'm talking about, there are some options available out there that when I really tune in, I may see those options and consider something new or different than what I thought I should do. But if it has anything to do with harming someone, forget it. But anyway, we can then determine, once we determine those options, we can then determine if it's worth making someone else wrong. That's what this all boils down to. Are we going to make someone else wrong? For me, being happy is way more important than being right in 99.9% of life issues. And believe me when I say I do not find any joy in making someone else wrong. So it's just not worth the cost of being right all the time, and it's not important in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion. Being right is merely a definition or a label of what we call or what we consider something that really doesn't matter. We'll talk about labels some other times. I got a great story about that. But folks, what I'm trying to tell you here is choosing happiness. Choosing happiness will offer you so much more peace, so much more gratitude, so much more comfort, so much more love and kindness than being right ever will. And being right, folks, is not what it's made up to be. Being right only serves to cause you pain, cause your friends and family and loved ones pain. Thank you for listening in today. I invite you to follow the Life's Toolbox Facebook page, where you will find daily affirmations to help brighten your day, links to this show, the archive shows, and lots of other goodies as well. Also, please visit my newly rebuilt website at www.kennybrixey.com to find out about my books, my personal and spiritual growth workshops, coaching programs, and all my other work as well. My deepest gratitude goes out to Brent Carey for creating this amazing resource for empowered living that is Empower Radio. Also, thanks to the producers, Mark and Dylan, back in the studios, who are doing a wonderful job for this show and many others as well. Folks, tune into the shows here on Empower Radio. Find one that speaks to you and then share it with the world. Until next week and beyond, choose to be happy rather than right. Change your life, change your world, change your experience. Love and peace.